Hi, y'all again. Um, I went and had myself a nice granny nap after my marathon watching from 2 a.m. on. I watched, not only did I watch the Netflix one, but watch it twice. Now, this is kind of my second take on it after I kind of had another deep dive into this old demented brain of mine. Um, you know what? I'm kind of glad I saw it. And this is why. Um, it kind of just gave me hope for humanity. And the reason it is that it showed Shulie in a different light. It showed him a man who is enjoying life in his little farm that he bought himself after retirement, dressing up like a real Canadian. And it just seems to be he's just so proud to be a Canadian. Even though obviously he wasn't born there or raised there, and his little plaid lumberjack flannel, red one, and then he had a blue one too, chopping wood and walking his dog. What it does, it shows you a man at peace with life, and a man at the stage of his life where he actually, to some degree, has the time to take care of himself, because you know why he owns it. A man that is just there's got to be some inner joy to him. A man that has adopted that feels that although he has given so much to that country, I mean, he set up that whole neonatal transport, and he's considered the godfather of neonatal medicine in Canada. And here in America, I'm not hearing anything bad about neonatal that's coming across the border about neonatal medicine at all. To think that he could think about it and go, you know what, I got to do this, and I'm going to do this, and just just let's compare the two. Dowie, who a man who is so unhappy, just has to remember in the other documentaries, he has to take a syringe and with wine and show how you murder a baby. Is that like the ultimate creep? And then look at Shulie, who's chopping wood and stuff. And then I forgot to tell you another thing it shows in the documentary. It shows him walking, I guess, in the cold, I guess in London, and he's walking to the press conference. He's got a little Peaky Blinders cap. I don't know, peaked cap, whatever you call those cap. That the I saw that the Peaky Blinders said, just your basic coat and just a little backpack. I mean, it looks like your everyday, just small statured man just walking there, mild mannered, the whole bit, and just kind of walk with this determination. And then it showed he didn't strut at all. He just walked. He was walking, and it was cold, and he was walking it with a man with determination. And then it showed Nick Johnson walking, strutting like a freaking peacock to the courtroom. Before he gets his silly wig and everything on, like he's just full of it. And again, it just shows you again how Dewey was so full of it. And yet he had this lovely man, Shulie, who's just, loves, he feel he's such in love with Canada that he wants to spend the rest of his life there and work in the woods. And it's just as happy with life too. Again, it just, the difference it shows you with the two men. I bet if any of the nurses that worked with Shulie, I hope they watched the documentary, just his part. And I got this feeling, and if I was that nurse, they would be smiling, going, "Yep, I could see him doing that. I could see, oh, Dr. Shulie doing that. I could see them texting each other, old friends, and say, "Hey, I saw him on Netflix. Yep, he's really gone. He's really gone full lumberjack in the best of ways." So I don't. How do I say? I don't want you to. If you get a chance to watch the clips, I wish someone would post somewhere the whole clip of all of Shulie somewhere, and you can see just a man who has done so much for his community, so much for his country, and is so peace with his life. Now, I'm having a second thought on Baby D, on the mom of Baby D. Um, Now I'm thinking that, although I kind of had posted earlier, I thought she was gaslighted. No, this is what my second thought in on that. And if you can remember, Baby D, this was the poor mom that was, her waters had broken 60 hours and no one gave, her antibiotics. No, the baby just basically collapsed in the arms of the father at 12 minutes. And she basically had a demand that a pediatrician come back twice. And then baby was like between 3 and 4 hours, and it had to be shuffled on. Um, I'm not so sure. Again, and I think this is going to go totally on the death of this baby is because of the maternity department. Okay, and I think Michael McConville probably got it right. That obviously it should have gotten antibiotics, the first thing, and then the second thing is that we're going to blame whoever just let this hospital stay on sewers. And my understanding is that this hospital's the footprint was an old asylum with old Victorian, probably with old Victorian sewers. That this was like several generations of a hospital or an asylum and stuff. So they never got rid of that Victorian sewer, I bet. I bet it might have just been that. And then they just kept building on to the platform and didn't give it a forethought. Um, that basically, and probably, during that labor, it was definitely exposed to it probably was exposed to the mother's regular flora, which would have been Group B strep and E. coli, which would have probably been covered, and the baby might have, and if it was just that, it might have survived, just like my daughter did with ampicillin and gentamicin, wonderful drugs, which covers both of those, and it does a beautiful job. And again, is that there's a good chance this baby was probably exposed to Pseudomonas, and something maybe like Klebsiella, which is just nasty too, which would be in sewage too during this thing. And again, those antibiotics would not have covered those. Okay. Um, and I'm trying to put myself into the mind of both the neonatal nurses, the consultant, and also the registrar that was at the resuscitation. Now, I bet they said, "Oh my God, what freaking idiots! How do you let a woman 60 hours go without antibiotics and then just let this baby sit there on the maternity ward for 3.5 hours?" Thank God we got it into the neonatal intensive care unit and we got it on antibiotics. Okay. And we got it on what we thought, and it probably was a good mindset. We thought it was going to be correctly on ampicillin and gentamicin. And we thought, okay, we got a term baby here. And a term baby is just miles. It's like on a different planet from a preemie baby. We got a term here. They screwed up so bad. We're gonna fix it. And I have had, as a nurse, we have had patients come back after there was a screw up. Okay, a screw up, either by the physician or the hospital or what, and then we had to fix it, and we did it. And so there's hope here, and we have fixed some real screw ups here. And it was, and I know there were signs of this baby, but maybe it was just blinders by thought that I'm doing something right. Um, Not seeing that, how you just sometimes like a deer in the headlight, you don't see that on thing coming, and they're thinking, okay, we're gonna do this, we can do this, and such. Now, and I keep going. So again, it wasn't a gaslighting. It was almost like in a state of denial, the healthcare thing. And really, honestly, I do believe that they probably, and again, she said all the nurses and doctors, and tell me she was getting better. I bet they believe in their heart there was, and that they were looking to, well, there probably were some hopeful signs there, and then kind of putting that higher than what those other signs were. So it was, again, we in the healthcare field are human too, And we only want to think of the best. Not everyone on that Countess of Chester unit were bad. Now, and I keep thinking that she said that registrar had that baby in his arms and was resuscitating. Okay, okay, put yourself in that mind of that registrar. Now, I am an adult med-surg nurse. We expect death. Okay. In a neonatal department, you expect death on a severely a congenital issue, a genetic thing that they're born with, or a premature baby. You don't expect death in a full termer without any issues besides that. You don't expect it. So I can imagine that registrar had to be crushed. And that for some consultant to basically, I understand, had to basically tap him on the shoulder and say, stop, enough. You've done enough. Now put your mind in that consultant. That consultant was not one of the 7. That was one of a very unusual consultant by the name of Elizabeth Newby. I have yet to see anything that has me really, really concerned about her. Now, she left somewhere around February, March of 2016. She was only there half the time. And you know who replaced her? It was that bitch Susie Holt. Now, I'm kind of reading some of her testimony in Thirlwall and stuff, and my understanding is a lot of the junior doctors went to her for like, what's going on here? And she has always talked about infection. I didn't see her throw Lucy under the bus. Now, again, she had to some degree, and I think, this is a woman consultant in the NHS. And I'm believing more and more the NHS, that hierarchy thing. There's misogyny here in America too, but I am really wondering about the amount of misogyny over at the NHS. And I am one that's not a big feminist, okay? I'm not one of these, I see misogynists at every turn. I see misogyny also both come from women and men too. So again, she kept kind of underscoring in a subtle way infection in all of her statements. Now, please, if someone is reading her stuff, Elizabeth Newby, and seeing something else, please make a comment on that. But again, I haven't done a deep dive into this woman, but that's the only baby she was involved with, and she was involved in the resuscitation. I'm not seeing her name on any of the other babies. All right? I would have seen it by then, okay? So this baby was like a full-termer death. That just shouldn't have happened. Another thing that I am kind of wondering too is that, and I was a home care nurse too for a little bit of while in between my gigs in my hospital, and I would go in people's homes, and I was always just really taken back, often by the condition of homes. You go into people's homes, and I'm kind of like, oh wow, they live like this, and I was always taken back by they would always think that that what their living condition, even though some of it was like either they were hoarders or not so clean or semi-hoarders, they just seemed to think that was normal. So, and I'm starting to have this feeling of the staff at the Countess of Chester that they were so gaslighted or whatever, believing that the condition of all this was normal, that it was almost, they were blinded by the filth, if you get my drift, that they're almost like you were forced to live in this, so you believe it's normal. And again, us in the healthcare field are human beings too, and stuff. So again, I'm kind of having some second takes on all this, but again, the more I'm thinking about it, it's kind of showing to some degree the humanity of the staff at the Countess of Chester and what they had to deal with. And again, part of me is like thinking of this consultant. Can you imagine? And again, if you're a consultant and those trainees are kind of coming to you, a concern, they look at you as some sort of maybe a maternal figure or someone, a mentor to go to. And for her to have to go and tap her fingers onto the shoulder of that registrar and say, stop, that had to hurt her too. And so let's give her some humanity too. Again, oh, if someone has those clips of Shulie, again, you know, it just gives me more. I like him. I love him more. And even just seeing him walking with that little peaked cap and he just had a little backpack. He didn't have that, that important briefcase that Dewey always had. No, he just had a little backpack and just a basic jacket, nothing special. You would have never, ever guessed looking at him just walking on the streets in London that he was some big shot. And seeing him chop wood with his little flannel shirt. Again, we always make fun of Dewey and his mustard colored jumper, but now I'm thinking, what a cool guy in his lumberjack, his lumberjack plaid flannel thing. And it just, again, it would have just been it would have been it would have been an honor as a nurse to work with him. It probably would have been fun of them too, and just it just, again, it's wonderful to see a man that has just flourished and has the foresight and just the inner consciousness of saying, no, 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 this will not do. I'll do whatever I can. I'll be on some dumb shit Netflix thing if that's what it takes. And if they want me to chop wood, I'll chop wood. And if they want to have a drone flying above me, walking the dog, okay, whatever it takes, I'll do it. But it's gonna be there. So I'm just, again, we saw the best or the worst in humanity, but again, now in this Netflix things, I saw the best. So, bye bye. Thank you.